Good evening, everyone, and Om Shanti. And it is so lovely to be with all of you and to be sharing on this very important subject of the Yagya. And having chosen for me the flame of love was very interesting. So I'll start with a story to tell you how interesting it is. As you heard, I am one of the first people to come to Baba when he came into the West. So, of course, there was a center in Hong Kong, and then there was London, and of course, I think Germany. And then they flew all the way to Guyana in this part of the world, the Western Hemisphere. And Baba found the family there, uncle and auntie and all of us, the children. And I then was, in a way, one of the first Brahmins, or our family were the first set of Brahmins that emerged from this part of the world, being born in this across the seven seas in this region. And so I always wondered what it was that made that happen for me, what it was that caused God to be attracted to us souls that were across the seven seas and lived in this far remote small country. And so I was in Madhuban. I think it was in 1979, and that I first met Baba in 1976. And then in 1979 was the second time I met him. And he was giving this Murli on specialties. And when I had my personal, in those days, Baba would meet us personally at every meeting. Every time he came, he would meet with the double foreigners who were there. And so he was meeting with this small group of us. And I said to him, Baba, what is my specialty? I don't know what my specialty is. And he gave me this long drishti. And then he said to me, your specialty is love. And I remember saying in my mind, my specialty is love. Baba, you say that to everyone. Everyone's specialty is love then. But he kept holding me with his drishti, and he went on to say that your specialty is love because you don't do anything unless it's the love for God. And I was very struck by that because that was absolutely what I felt. So for me, in that moment, I connected to Baba as the flame of this yajna because it is him, the flame of love, that ignites in me a will to do something, a will to transform, a will to do service, a will to live in New York City, a will to do many things I wouldn't have had the will to do. And so even if I had a thought about doing it, a thought in and of itself or a feeling in and of itself wouldn't have worked for me. But because I connected to the flame, connected to God, it was for the love of God. I do everything because I say for the love of God. And so I want to start there. And I want to look at as Moira said, I love to go and unpack words. I like to take words apart like a puzzle. And then I like to put the puzzle back together to see how one word, a picture paints 1,000 words, but I think 1,000 words could also paint a single experience. And so it is like taking all these words and putting them together and then looking at the experience of what love is in relation to the yajna. I know I took up a class a few months ago on the yajna itself. So I want to focus now on this flame of love, and I'm not going to expand on what the yagya is and what the yagya isn't, but I just want to stay for my 30 minutes with this concept of the flame of love. So when I look at the flame of love, the first thing I see is the eternal flame of love. And it was that eternal flame of love that gave me spiritual birth, because I know that it was in that moment that I had the will to commit my life. And when Baba told me that my specialty was love, and in his drishti, I was born. And so it is that love from the eternal flame, the flame of the Syagya, that gave me spiritual birth. And so I feel that spiritual birth takes place from Baba, Shiv Baba, and of course, Bap Dada, which is the eternal flame of love. He connects us back to the experience of this supreme love, this eternal love. And for me, when we use in the world the eternal flame, it is a metaphor that the world uses in relation to flame, in relation to fire. But this metaphor is saying that there is this love that remains in the soul that represents eternity. So long as that eternal flame burns in the soul, once it gets ignited from Baba, the flame of the yagya, and it keeps burning in the soul that it touches, life and hope remain in our lives. And we can then serve the world from that which got ignited in our soul, that eternal love. So it is like something, I feel, why it's called eternity, because that flame of love got ignited from Baba and became eternal in our souls, birth after birth. And so we were always the instruments to bring life and to bring hope to other people and to our world. So when we came back to Baba, and he reminded us of that by reigniting it in our souls, then we became part of this whole task of Yagya Seva and of world transformation. I think that the eternal flame, I believe that the eternal flame burns in our hearts, in the heart of the soul. It just doesn't touch us at the level of thoughts or at the level of just, the intellect, which is very important, but it touches us at the core of the soul, and the core of the soul is the soul's heart. So when that eternal love is touched at the core of the soul, then the soul has faith in God. And what it is that the soul has faith in, when we say, I have faith in the yagya, it means I have faith in Baba's love, because Baba's love, once it got ignited in me, it began to live in me. Baba found a place inside of my soul to generate his love. So his love began to live within me. And the more God's love lives within me, or Baba's love lives within me, it's the more I'm going to have love for what he has created in terms of his yagya. It is also that love that keeps being generated in me, that in the heart of the soul, that brings the victory for me. And what it brings, it's a victory over my illusions. It's a victory over my influences. It's a victory over the vices. And this is why on the path of devotion, when it comes to a yajna, they put all the condiments in the fire, which is called the eternal fire of God. But they always say swaha. And swaha means I give myself to you. I hand my life, I give my life into your hands, Baba. And so it is that kind of love that gets ignited within us, a love that in which we sacrifice the vices, in which we get victory over the vices, and in which we hand our life over to Baba. And Baba begins to guide us to this ultimate victory. The other aspect of eternal love for me as a flame is that this eternal flame burns in our hearts, but what it really burns in our hearts and connects us to are the other living flames that we call the ancestor souls now. And so burning in our hearts is love for God, but also love and respect for those ancestor souls who became, in a way, like Baba, became like that flame. They were also living flames, but they became like Baba. And so their love and their sacrifice as living flames of the Yagya also keeps this fire, this eternal fire burning as a whole Yagya. So for me, when I look at the eternal flame of love in the Yagya, it consists of Bapdada, it consists of the ancestor souls, all those eternal flames. It consists of us and our generation. It consists of the young ones who are still to come. And so the flame just keeps, the eternal flame just keeps, bringing this beautiful togetherness, this unity, this coming together. But there's also another flame, I think. The flame could also be described in another way, and that is the flame of immortal love. And for me, the Yagya is a flame. Baba is the flame in the Yagya, and Baba provides through the Yagya immortal love. So what does immortal love do? How does it differ from this eternal love? And for me, immortal love regenerates in the soul the fire of truth. So immortal love is a love that emerges out of truth and sets for the soul a reconstruct. It reconstructs the consciousness within the soul. And so immortal love would set the code of conduct for us. We have to follow Mariadas. Why do we follow Mariadas? Because we're reconstructing a consciousness in the soul. And we're doing that through our mannerisms, through our divine mannerisms, through our behavior. Immortal love is divine in nature, whereas eternal love is godly in nature. So immortal love teaches us things like how to forgive. And forgiveness, if I forgive with immortal love, this love that constitutes divinity, it means that I'm acting on a divine characteristics. And immortal love also resets my spiritual compass. And this spiritual compass is to do with my conscience. And so this is why the first gift that Baba gives us as living flames of the Yagya through the immortal love, making the soul immortal, is the divine intellect. And the divine intellect operates with love. And this divine intellect gives the soul divine insight and connects it to its conscience. And so then this immortal love helps us to move through from body consciousness to soul consciousness, whereas eternal love helps us to purify. That fire helps us to purify the impurities within the soul. So as I was looking at the flame of Yagya, I saw it within these two contexts, eternal love and immortal love, in relation to what Baba has created. So the eternal, the flame of Yagya, of love in the Yagya is also, as I said, based on truth. So there are three areas that we look at the flame of love in relation to truth. And one is the Yagya is a family. So we have what's called family love. And the family love that we share is a soul conscious love. And this soul conscious love is based on a fundamental truth. And that fundamental truth is, I am a soul. And intrinsic within me is love. But also intrinsic within me is truth. So that's one of the first flames, how the truths that sets free that love within the soul so that it could see the family of the Brahmins and the family of humanity. The second, I think, the truth is set within the teachings that the Yagya represents. And so love for Baba's teachings. And so this is why the Yagya is called a Gyan Yagya. The Gyan Yagya means the pyre of knowledge. Baba talks about this. So the pyre is a fire, and knowledge are the teachings. So the fire of that the knowledge is set in is that passionate response I have to Baba's teachings. And that passionate response, or that very intense response that I have to Baba's teaching, tells me I have love for the truth, because the truth is what he says. God speaks the truth. So love for the truth. And so this is why when we say the Yagya is a university, it is teaching us about universal truths. And the more we have love for universal truths, it's the more we're going to have love for this lifelong learning process, this participatory process that Baba asks us to engage in with him. The other thing about the Yagya, it is an organization. So within the organizational aspects of the Yagya, the functioning aspects of the Yagya, Baba asks us to have love for the laws, love for his Srimad. And so this balance of love and law is again based in the Srimad that he's giving us and telling us to not just understand the truth, but to be honest with yourself in the way you follow the truth. So I had to do a class on honesty, and I made this distinction between honesty and truth, because I could be very eloquent in talking about truth. But if I don't follow the Srimad, if I don't apply myself to the laws that are contained within the Srimad, then I'm not honest, because I didn't have love for the practical aspect of the truth. I didn't inculcate it. So for me, love for laws is to respect those laws as something that I have to follow, and in following them, I will then be honest in relation to the truth. So that is what for me an organization means, a functioning means. And so I have to have love for those, for the Srimad, love for the laws that Baba has given me. And then what does all of this mean to me? What is this flame, this Yagya flame mean to me in the context of all of that? And I feel that eternal love, immortal love, and love for the Yagya as a family, as a university, and as an organization, that love gives me the authority. It gives me a kind of an authority. So for me, I would say it comes as true love. I have true love. I have pure love. And so this true and pure love, which is the Yagya flame, actually gives me the experience of the authority of God's love. I think that in the Yagya, we experience love to be something more relational among ourselves. But I think the Yagya love is to experience the authority of God's love. And I think to experience the authority of God's love requires us to experience this flame of love of the Yagya with a few truths that Baba is drawing our attention to. And when these truths are experienced through love, through that power of love, they bring an authority to us. And with that authority, Baba calls us protectors of the Yagya. So the first truth that Baba talks about is to tell us who we are, that we are those true, eternal, immortal beings, we are souls. So when I hear the word eternal now, and I hear the word immortal, I'm going to think of them in relation to love. Because both words are used in relation to love. Eternal love, immortal love. And they're also used in relation to light, but also to love. The second truth that brings me the authority of love, that it makes me experience that authority of love, is Baba, to know who Baba is, to connect to that flame, to know it was the flame whose love gave me birth, gave me spiritual birth. And that is why to know God is to love him. And so the more I know him, it's the more I'm going to love him. The third truth is the recognition of his true teachings. The teachings that he's giving us and how the power of his love shines through a spiritual authority from his teachings. And the next one is the power of love that Baba uses and touches our souls to remove the darkness of ignorance, the falsehood that we are covered with, and how it is the teachings, but it is the love that comes through the teachings that allows that darkness to be removed. Because if he was only teaching us in an academic way and not an experiential way, if we were not feeling his love, if we were not experiencing his love in his words, our darkness would not have been removed. Our enlightenment couldn't take place. We couldn't recognize truth from falsehood unless we experienced the authority of love through Baba's words. And so maybe this is for me, this flame of love that we are looking at and we're seeing ourselves through is the three words that Baba describes, or we describe Baba as when we look at him as this flame of love of the Yagya. And that is Satyam, Baba is truth. Shivam, Baba is benevolent. And Sundaram, Baba is beautiful. So this flame of love of the Yagya shines in our souls. The love shines as Satyam, as truth, as Shivam, as benevolence, and as Sundaram, as beautiful. And I would end it as with a few things for us to ponder on, and then I'll give you your reflective questions. Another aspect that has been talked about in relation to the flame of love of the Yagya is that this flame of love removes the obstacles from the Yagya. And we always wonder, where do these obstacles come from that Baba talks about that are going to be thrown in the Yagya? And today, as I look at the flame of love, and sometimes I wonder if our lack of attention on this flame, on this Satyam, Shivam, Sundaram, on this truth, benevolent and beautiful flame, if we're not getting sidetracked by human influences, because there's so much on Zoom, there's so much going on in the extensions, and we are maybe in some way, shape, or form, losing contact with the flame of the yagya. And so if that happens, what would be the obstacles that would, kind of smother our flame from connecting to the flame, to the main flame, which is Baba in the yagya? And what would smother our flames? And I would offer 3 obstacles that we have to be careful of that wouldn't smother our flames. And then we're no longer able to connect to this flame of love. You would feel as though there's a separation between you and Baba, because there's so many elements of influences in between your little flame and Baba, the big flame. And I would offer 3 obstacles that we have to be very, very careful about, that we don't allow these obstacles to come in the way of connecting to Baba, the flame. One is the obstacle of fear. If we have fear, then there would be worry. And that fear would create a distance between me and Baba. It would interfere in the love between I, a flame, and Baba, the supreme flame. So for me, how the flame of love will remove fear is for us to be fearless. And how we can be fearless is that when we connect to Baba as that eternal flame and allow our souls to live in a state of optimism. Because if I know I have truth inside of me and my life is given to Baba, the truth, and it's given to Baba with love, then that love will make me carefree. And I would be free from worry, and I would be fearless. And I would continue, as he says, to dance in happiness. So watch that obstacle of fear, because it will separate us from our true love, from that flame of love. The other obstacle is the obstacle of carelessness. So, Baba always says that nothing can remain hidden from the Father, but he also says nothing can remain hidden from me. I can hide it from others, but it cannot be hidden from me. And so he says that that this obstacle of carelessness, I must look at. And one of the ways that carelessness stepped into our lives that again separate us from the love of the flame is when I try to hide things. I'm doing things that I know are going to separate me from this love of God, from the love, from being under that canopy of his love. And so I move into carelessness because of hiding it. But also what happens is that it will confuse me. And in that confusion, I would not feel his love. I will turn away from his love. And so this is why the Baba always says to us, as the flame of the Yagya, he's always pleased with an honest and clean heart. And then the other obstacle I would look at that will come into the Yagya to separate me from the flame would be the influences I'm under, or my false illusions that I have. And these would come from Maya, of course, illusions. It would come from the distress that I'm facing in the world that's causing disheartenment, from my relations and connections. It would come from the atmosphere becoming more and more toxic, and it would interfere in my true love. I would feel myself becoming empty of love, because all of this is just, taking away that love for God, because I begin to lose faith in him and faith in myself. So this is an obstacle we don't want to come in the Yagya, especially in my little flame. And then the final one is the obstacle of uncertainty. And Baba had told us at the beginning of the yajna that things will get bad, mountains of sorrow will fall, that the boat of truth will rock, but it won't sink. He tells us all of these things because he knows that we're moving into times of great uncertainty. And so he says that this flame, this eternal and immortal flame of true love that ignited the yajna and keeps burning bright is the flame that we must connect to get our strength and support. And so the sign that I have true love for Baba is that I will always take strength and support from him, and I will not create the obstacle of uncertainty in this yajna in myself, because these are things I have to create in myself, and then I become an obstacle in the yajna. So my question to you would be, my reflective question to you would be to ask the self, since I am a child of the true Father, since I am a little flame connected to the supreme flame, the eternal flame, the immortal flame of love, to what extent have I become absorbed in the power of true love? To what extent have I become Baba's loveleen? Now he uses this term in Hindi, loveleen, and loveleen means to be a soul who is absorbed in the true love of God, the eternal flame of the yajna. So I leave you with that reflective question. Om Shanti.
queremos llevar nuestra reflexión, lindo momento de poder vernos a nosotros mismos, cuánto amor tenemos por Baba, cuánto nos hemos acercado a la llama. Y ahora vamos a pensar qué paso puedo dar, qué podría transformar, aumentar, cambiar ese estado del ser o esa cercanía. Quizás quiero aumentarla, quizás necesito acercarme a Baba porque me alejé, porque no estoy como antes, o quizás quiera estar aún más cerca. Entonces, pensemos qué paso puedo dar ahora hacia lo que escuchamos, las reflexiones profundas de Sister Gayatri. ¿Cuál sería mi próximo paso para mantener esta llama encendida? Reflexionamos un momento más. Y ahora, desde mi corazón honesto, sin miedo, puedo preguntar a Sister Gayatri lo que quiera por el chat. Tenemos una pregunta, Gayatri, para ti. Esta pregunta es del hermano Rey de Venezuela. Si podrías ampliar sobre la autoridad del amor por la yagya. ¿Cómo defines la autoridad del amor?
The authority of love for the yagya is when you're given a position from which to be an instrument of Baba to do certain things. And so once we assume a position in the yagya, we tend to look at the rules. We tend to look at the laws. And we tend to use those as ways to get the control. We use them to control. If we looked at the lives of the daddies who were in positions, they never call themselves leaders. That's one of the things they never like to call themselves. So, because to call oneself a leader, you're assuming an authority. But they always call themselves as spiritual servers or as instruments of God. So what they did was that they inculcated, they imbibed and transformed themselves according to the laws. So their leader was Baba and his Srimat, his teachings and his Srimat. But why they followed his Srimat and why they loved his teachings was because they loved him. And so it was the love for Baba that gave them their authority to not use the laws as a weapon to control others, but to use the authority of love to bring others into a relationship with Baba. And I think that this is the difference. The authority of Baba's love is to bring people, to give them a sense of belonging. And even those who don't belong to the Brahmin family, it's fine, but to include them nevertheless. But in order to have to share that love and not become trapped in it, it is very important to follow the laws, to follow the maryadas, to follow the code of conduct, to follow the Srimat, which are the laws. And so this was, for me, the authority that God's love gives us authority, not his laws. His laws makes us the instruments for him to get his work done through, only if I inculcated them. Is that clear?
Sí, muchas gracias, Gayatri. Muy profundo. Y sí, el ejemplo de las daddies nos inspira y nos toca muy en el corazón. Es algo que nos inspira a cambiar y a entender que la autoridad viene realmente del amor y no de la posición, ¿no? Entonces, el hermano Rey también dice que experimento a la yagya como el barco en donde todos vamos guiados por el barquero supremo. Quería invitar a todos, si tienen alguna pregunta, aprovechar la presencia de Sister Gayatri, algo que te haya tocado el corazón, que quieras que ella te aclare, cualquier duda que tengas, o si quieren hacer algún comentario en base a lo que ella nos compartió, lo que eso despierta en ti ahora, pueden ponernos sus comentarios o preguntas en el chat. Si alguien quiere.
I also maybe would draw your attention to Baba says that there will be a lot of obstacles thrown in the yagya.
Yeah.
And I purposely introduced the obstacles that are being thrown in the yagya right now through us, because we are becoming the obstacles. And we are becoming the obstacles through fear, carelessness, through influences, and through uncertainties.
Wow.
And it will separate us from the flame, from the eternal and immortal flame. And I really wanted you to hear that.
Right.
Because the only thing that will remove any one of those four things would be Baba's love for me and my faith in Baba's love for me. And this is why these series of Murlis that Baba's been talking about, in which he's expressing to us how he feels about us. When he says, when I love you, this is what I feel for you. And we need to pay attention to that.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
Gracias.
it is these subtle things that will remove us from him, from that eternal flame, and separate us from the yagya. If we lose faith in ourselves, we will lose faith in Baba and in the yagya.
Wow. Qué profundo, y gracias por llamarnos la atención, ¿no? A volvernos muy conscientes de esta responsabilidad de mis esfuerzos, de lo que represento, de la verdad que transmito, de cuánto sinceramente practico de todo lo que Baba nos ha enseñado y cómo ahora es nuestro estado el que es el mensaje y el que sirve. Entonces es un tiempo
Mm.
maravilloso, por un lado, porque tenemos tiempo, tenemos el más refinado sustento que por lo menos yo en 35 años he experimentado. Eh, Tenemos todo, todo, todo disponible. Nuestro mundo interno se ha hecho tan grande y no hay nada que podamos esconder de Baba ni de lo que nos podamos esconder de nosotros mismos. Es como un tiempo de máxima, extrema honestidad, ¿no? Y transparencia en la que todo lo que queremos es posible por un lado, pero tenemos que ser muy, muy honestos, ¿no? Y esto que vos decís de que nosotros podamos ser el obstáculo en la yaquia, porque la yaquia solo tiene éxito a través de nuestra pureza, ¿no? Entonces todo lo que yo tengo que transformar y a la vez me gusta mucho cuando escucho a Sister Mohini cada noche que nos anima, ¿no? Que es paso a paso, que si hasta hoy no hiciste algo, entonces a partir de hoy puedes cambiar y esta cosa como de no desesperanzarnos, ¿no? Que me parece tan importante. Acá tenemos de Benicia, Om Shanti, en el caso de la realidad de este continente y el servicio a todo el árbol de la humanidad, es importante comprender que el acercamiento a la verdad del ser es particular. Eh, a ver, eh, eh, no, esta es una pregunta, bueno, ya que en las convenciones culturales, tanto de las tradiciones judío-cristianas
Is
o el de las religiones sajonas, no exactamente reflejan la naturaleza de fenómenos antropológicos licenciados en los intelectos. A ver, esto es Franco, si has realizado reflexiones en este sentido. A ver, espera,
I
Gayatri, que
think
veo
that
que...
there are four things that would be important, and I think I mentioned it. If we have true love for the family of humanity, there are a few things that would bring them close to God, because being an instrument is to transcend anything that separates me from the truth. And this is why I said eternal love and immortal love work, especially immortal love, works on reconstructing the consciousness of the soul, removing it from body consciousness, which is exposing us to different ways of seeing myself as separate culturally, anthropologically, nationality. All these things separate me from the truth. So this is why when I look at true love as a godly authority, these are the things I have to inculcate for me to transcend the divisions. And so the first thing is to know myself as a true and immortal person. I have to know God as the seed of the whole human tree and to know him and to love him. To have the recognition of the knowledge that he is giving me. And the knowledge that he's giving me is of the whole tree, is of the whole cycle, is of time, is of the whole humanity. The other truth I have to recognize is what is darkness, what is falsehood, what is ignorance, and to be able to remove it based on what Baba is teaching me, based on the knowledge that he's teaching me, based on that power of truth that would make me conquerors of being, living in ignorance. So I think that if the soul inculcates the truth about these fundamental things of life, it will transcend everything that divides. And it will then serve the whole tree, because the whole tree belongs to God, and the whole tree of humanity will get the inheritance of liberation. And I have to be an instrument for that, but I have to transcend all the things that the physical world has conditioned me with, and to be unconditional in the way I serve them is to go back to the core understanding of the true teachings of God, of Baba, and to love them on the basis of that, to have immortal and eternal love for them. And I think that that is what transcendence is all about. I'm only going to be able to do that if I transcend all the limitations and influences and conditions that the world has put inside of me and created layers of ignorance or of falsehood.
Gracias, Gayatri. Tenemos un par de preguntitas más antes de concluir con la meditación. Siento que este es un tiempo extra muy maravilloso para avanzar en la autotransformación. Lo que me quedo pensando es cómo lograr más honestidad en mí para estar más cerca de Baba y ser un mejor instrumento. ¿Cómo lograr más honestidad? Esto es de Andrea de Uruguay.
Oh, that's a nice question. I have a nice answer too. I am doing what is called an honesty journal. And I'm doing it for 10 weeks. And I'm paying attention to two things. One, how do I lie to myself? How does my mind lie to me on a daily basis? I have realized that my mind is my biggest liar. And my mind is always trying to tell me something to influence me by telling me lies. So I'll just give an example. Sister Mohini calls me, and I'm on my elliptical machine working out. And she says to me, Gayatri, where are you? And my mind begins to make excuses. Rather than say, Sister Mohini, I'm on the elliptical machine working out, I would try to make an excuse to tell her a lie. And I began to say, why am I doing this? Oh, mind, why? How do you lie to me? And so I started keeping this journal of how dishonest I am with myself, how my mind leads me to dishonesty. And so I'm keeping a chart on that, to be honest with myself at the level of how my mind lies to me and how I make up excuses and how it's so easy to say, okay, it's fine when I do that. The second thing, how do I gossip about others? Do I talk about others behind their backs? Do I say anything not nice about someone else? And if I do, that's dishonesty to Baba's Srimad. So these are the two simple things I do because I know I tend to fall into doing that easily. And I realized they were the two ways I am dishonest with myself, with Baba, and with Baba's teachings, and with other people. So I would suggest if you really want to explore honesty, keep an honesty journal and you find out what are the ways you are dishonest with yourself. I found these two ways, but you may also find other ways. Do it start with 10 days, but do it for 10 weeks. And research shows that if you do it for 10 weeks, if you could identify two simple ways that you are dishonest with yourself, and you spend 10 weeks paying attention to it and calling yourself on yourself to be honest, it will contribute to your well-being. You will find your entire physical well-being changing. For instance, headaches. Many migraines are due to dishonesty with ourselves. And so that's something I'm doing. So it was an easy answer, wasn't it? because I had to give a talk on honesty. And I'm saying, and I had to give them homework. So I said, you know what? I have to do the homework first. So I did it for myself and I'm still doing it. And I know I'm light. I'm not one who gets guilty very easily. I'm not a guilty-ridden person. So even if I did something wrong, I don't spend hours being guilty about it. I just, okay, fine, I'll change it. But I do make the effort to change. So when I'm seeing how dishonest I am, I'm not on a guilt trip here. I'm on a liberation trip.
Wow.
Right? So
Yeah.
just give it a twist and be on the liberation side, not on the guilt side. Don't go into the guilt lane.
Gracias, Gayatri, por tocarnos con tu honestidad, no solo con vos misma y con Baba, pero con nosotros, y que, bueno, nos inspira a también nosotros hacer ese tipo de experimentos, ¿no? Profundos, sinceros, transformadores. Hay una pregunta más, y esta es la última que vamos a tomar, porque vamos a invitarte a que nos conduzcas.
Juliana, 1 minute. Moira, were you trying to tell me something?
Yes, isn't Juliana translating for you?
Okay, all right, Juliana.
Yeah, Juliana is translating for you. So, lo que estaba diciendo era que te agradezco por tu honestidad, no solamente con vos misma y con Baba, pero con nosotros, que nos toca realmente el corazón y que nos motiva a también nosotros dar esos pasos y entender cuánto nos perjudica la crítica, cuán deshonesto es y todos los juegos de la mente que nos contaste. Es espectacular como ejercicio y esfuerzo, ¿no? Tenemos una pregunta más antes de ir a la meditación, porque después no queremos avanzar mucho en el tiempo para que podamos cambiarnos a Vyakti Parivar. Entonces, la pregunta es de Alfredo de Argentina: ¿cuál es el motivo por el que hay meditaciones en las que experimento profundamente el amor de Baba y al poco tiempo, sin que haya pasado nada en el medio, no experimento en la misma medida? ¿Por qué fluctúa tanto esa experiencia?
Maybe you're hiding something from yourself or hiding something from Baba, and you're not aware that you're hiding it. And so for me, there are ways that I stay close to Baba. One way is that I have heart-to-heart conversations with Baba. And my heart-to-heart conversations are not just conversations when I'm sitting with him, but they're conversations throughout the whole day. I'm always talking to him. He's the one, he's my go-to person. And so what I do is I develop a realistic relationship with him, a real relationship with him, because I go to him with everything. Now, why am I telling you this? I had the tendency, and I still do, to say everything to Baba. If someone upsets me, I tell Baba off. I used to quarrel with Baba. When I was younger, I used to be frustrated. He used to hear all my frustrations. And then one day I was meeting him in Madhuban, and he said to me that I think too much, that I'm a soul that I think a lot. And he says, you're always thinking. You bring your good thoughts to me. You bring your negative thoughts to me. You bring your constructive, you bring all your thoughts to me and you tell me them as they are. And then he said, but because you do that, I have to respond to you. Because you are bringing it to me, I have to respond to you. Now, I kind of perked up. Oh, how do you respond to me? Because I wasn't aware that Baba was responding to me. I was aware I was telling him everything. And he said, I respond to you by removing the thoughts you shouldn't have. And I help you to have the thoughts that you should have. So if sometimes I am experiencing Baba's love beautifully, And then at other times I'm not, then I would go and talk to him about it. And I would say, Baba, why is it I can't, what is separating me from you? What is hiding inside of me, hiding itself from me that only you could see, that is creating a block? Do I have a leak? Am I careless? Am I worrying about something? Is there a karmic account there that I need to settle? And invariably, you will get a signal of what it is that's hiding itself that is stopping you from receiving love from God. And because he will remove it. The fact that you went to him and told him about it, he will remove it. Because he says he does it. He's not just going to do it for me. He was explaining to me a principle by which he worked. And so that means anyone who does it, he will remove that block. So this is where Baba says, understand the yuktis, understand the tricks, the tricks, that if you do things in a certain way, you're going to get my help, but do it so that you could get my help. Don't go tell it to Gayatri, or don't go tell it to Juliana, or don't go tell it to Yolanda. Tell it to me first. And so I think here, the success, the siddhi, is who do I tell my problems to first? Who is my go-to person? Because if it's Baba, it will be cleared. If it is a human being, I will have to be influenced by that human being, and I'll have to go through all sorts of crazy things. And then I still have to come back to Baba. And then he says, too late sometimes, because you're already so heavily influenced. Go sit in tapasya and then come back to me. So I would make Baba my go-to person. And the fact that you recognize that there's a block, that's a big, big realization. Don't underestimate it. But just now go and talk to Baba about it and let him clear it. Let him help you clear it.
Gracias, Gayatri. Esta es la última. ¿Qué significa tener un intelecto amoroso a la hora de la destrucción? Esto es de Janice de
A loving intellect. Yeah. Right. So if you have a loving intellect, it will lead you to your destination. If you have a divorced intellect, you will be left behind. And so a loving intellect means that, what is the intellect? The intellect is my divine, it's where divinity lives. And it makes me see things clearly. What is the intellect? The intellect is what I have to connect to God, because it is my intellect that remembers. What is the intellect? The intellect is my conscience. It allows me, it's my what I called my moral, my spiritual compass. It shows me the direction I need to be heading into, and it connects me to the source that will get me there. And so when I talk about the heart of the soul, I talk about the loving intellect, the Preet Buddhi. So the more, if the intellect is going to understand, that's a function of the intellect, and the intellect is going to take that understanding into experience. It is the intellect that's elevating the soul to get closer to God. So this is why Baba says, the more the intellect knows me, it's the more the intellect will love me, and the more the intellect will stay connected to me. And the intellect will be loving at the time you are facing obstacles, because that intellect will take you straight to God for your strength and your support. And if that's how my intellect works for me throughout my effort-making life, At the end, the intellect will take me to the destination I need to be, but the intellect will only do that if it has created that loving relationship with God. God is the attractor. He's the magnet. He's going to pull us to him. And what he pulls is the intellect, because the intellect has to remember him. And so that is a loving intellect, an intellect that remembers God with love based on the inculcation of the truth and knows what is right and what is wrong and chooses to do what is right. That's a loving intellect.
Wow. Muchísimas gracias, Gayatri. Nuestro tiempo se ha terminado. Nos quedaríamos escuchándote, creo que toda la noche. Pero bueno, vamos a terminar.
I'm sure not. You want to go to Sister Mohini now.
Yeah, queremos ir a escuchar el mensaje de Baba, así que vamos a terminar contigo con unos minutitos de meditación, si quieres conducir algunos pensamientos, y después Yolanda, y con eso ya después vamos a pasarnos a Vyakti Parivar. Muchas gracias.
So about 3 minutes?
Yeah, 3 minutes. Sí, está bien.
I am with Baba. In the subtle region. And being face to face. Looking into the angelic eyes of Brahma. Connecting to my most beloved Bapdada. I'm absorbed in my Father's love. His love brings out the truth in me. And this truth draws me closer to the eternal flame. In God's true love, there is eternal benevolence. It is a love that stays with me forever. My tiny flame, the soul, is resting in the supreme flame of true love. beauty of my divinity is experienced. And the immortality of my soul consciousness radiates with divine beauty. A beauty that I touch others with. As immortal love. Giving them a glimpse of their immortality. I am flame. I'm loving. I'm immortal. I'm eternal. I'm connected to the supreme flame. Flame of the yajna. And as child of the yajna, I protect the yajna with the authority of God's love. Om Shanti.